David Lynch said that, then there's some magic here.
In today's video, I'm going to be taking you with me on some of my days this spring, visiting Glastonbury and walking up to the top of the Tor, as well as some more local adventures around my local country park, and just sharing with you some of the things that I am enjoying that is keeping me healthy and enjoying life and helping me to feel strong, as well as some herbal allies that I've been working with, and some books that I've recently picked up, and some books that I'm currently reading, and some of the work that I've been doing with the deities I work with. So do join me on my spring adventures, get a nice hot drink, settle back, relax and enjoy.
Thank you for being here. I hope that you are well and safe and looking after yourselves. It's been a while since I've sat down and filmed in this space, and I really like it actually. I meant to film here last week, but the type of day it was really busy, and in the end I did a woodland vlog and I spoke a little bit about my experience with the Witch's Black Lent, which, if you don't know already, first of all, where have you been? But Jasmine Ambrosia and Trish Beanbag Hagbag created the Witch's Black Lent 3 years ago, so this is the 3rd year. I've taken part each year, and each year has been a very different experience. So I speak about that in that video, but this video is a little bit about my spring, really. So I'm going to be sharing with you some of my spring days. Spring equinox has gone already. It's 2-3 weeks ago now, I believe, where we are. Forgive me, it's the Easter holidays, like smack bang in the middle of the Easter holidays. So my days are full of children at the moment and certain things going on with work that I'm shifting around, and like lots and lots of changes in my life. But you know, I've been feeling strong the last few days, which is really amazing. But I've been seed cycling a lot in the last few months. It's actually a practice that I started trying to implement a few years ago, but I had difficulties because of the things that I was coming up against. But I've been really sticking to it, and since Neptune has gone into Aries in my 6th house, it's been floatier but easier in a way to stick to some of these things, and I'm actually excited for when Saturn goes into the 6th house as well. I think I need that. There's so much going around in my life at the moment in the 6th house, with health, with day-to-day routines, work, life, environment, etc. And pets as well. So, you know, if you follow astrology, that's interesting. But for me, yeah, the 6th house is where it's at the moment with Aries. So it's really interesting at the moment seeing how things are and just experiencing each lunation and each aspect and each ingress as they occur. You know, obviously the skies are just very eventful at present, and in the collective everything's very heavy, and you know, I'm feeling a lot of that, of course, but I'm trying my best to just move with love in everything that I do and come back to, you know, the planet, doing what I can for the planet, and then also doing what I can to be active, to support, to, you know, raise awareness, to come back to love, really. The day I'm filming, it's actually the Libra full moon, and it's the eclipse as well, and it very much speaks to, I guess, where it is in my chart, because it's in the 12th house. I'm feeling so internal, insular, but it's also external, and I'm expressing it. I'm finding ways to express it in the world, but not so much external. It's a complete paradox, I know. Basically, I have my South Node in Libra in my 12th house, and I have my North Node in Aries in the 6th house, and so that's one of the reasons as well why I think this has been so intense for me. But I've been diving really deep into a lot of esoteric, very philosophical topics, reading around a lot of things and just expanding my mind, really. And I guess it speaks to the 9th house as well, where Mars has been retrograde for me, and it's going to go back into Leo, and I'm hoping there'll be some developments in my career house because it's in my 10th house. I'm hoping there'll be some developments around that. But essentially there's just so much going on for me inside, and there have been a lot of downloads, there's been a lot of developments. I've had Persephone come forward. If you see my other video about the Witch's Black Lent, I talk a little bit about Persephone coming forward for me today, even just today, because I'm reading a book, and today it's brought a bit more clarity to it for me. The particular book I'm reading at the moment is Thomas Karlsson's Qabalah, Qliphoth and Goetic Magick, and there is a section where Persephone is mentioned as one of the deities that is aligned with Lilith with relation to the Qliphoth and that left-hand path. The Qliphoth being the darker side of the Qabalah, the opposite side, the kind of waste matter. But this book is so amazing. I'm really, really loving this. So I'm about a third of the way through at the moment, and there's just some beautiful illustrations and prints and things in here. So I picked this up from Courtyard Books. Is it Courtyard Books? The main sort of occult esoteric bookseller in Glastonbury, and that was just a week and a half ago. So I've started reading this immediately and couldn't put it down. I'm just loving it. So yeah, it actually makes a lot of sense now why Persephone would be coming forward, but still it's something that I am marinating on. It's something that I am learning more about. I've never ever worked with a Greek deity before, really. I mean, Hecate's come in, but it's just sort of been peripheral, and then she's passed through. And I've read a lot about Hecate, obviously being such a powerful and prominent goddess that a lot of people work with. I've read about her before, but this is the first time really that I've been diving deep into mythology. I have worked with Medusa for brief periods of time. I also worked briefly with Inanna a number of years ago as well, but obviously not Greek, but in the sense that Inanna is another one of these deities related to Ketabasis and that descent, that journey into the underworld. And I did think I would quite like to read Jane Meredith's The Descent of the Dark Goddess. I think that's what it's called again. I read that like 3 years ago, I think. Really made sense because I felt like I was already in the underworld. But I speak in the Witch's Black Lent video a little bit more about that, but I really feel like I've had an invitation now to ascend, and I actually feel it's a gentle invitation, but I'm going to be forced into it sooner rather than later. But
so, as I said, I made a pilgrimage to Glastonbury this spring, and it was just exactly what I needed to go and be in nature. And of course I went to the shops, and so you can see some footage. I didn't take all that much footage, but I did take some footage at Starchild. I had a delicious vegan lunch as well at one of the cafes, and it was yummy. Also at St Margaret's Chapel, it was really beautiful to sit with Mary Magdalene and feel the presence of Mary Magdalene there. I also went to the Chalice well and to the White well, the White Spring, and spent time in there, and again received a number of messages and just really beautiful kind of synchronicities, as well as walking up the Tor, and it was so incredibly windy, and I was contemplating something very specific on my ascent of the Glastonbury Tor, and it began to get ridiculously windy as soon as I stepped foot inside the Tor and I was at the top, at the summit. It was quite wild actually. People were sitting up the top, and all of a sudden all of their stuff was flying off the side of the Tor, and people were sort of getting down to the ground because they were afraid they were going to blow over. I think it was really intense. So I was sort of keeping to the walls and listening, getting down to the ground and listening really just to spirit and the messages, and it was really beautiful and intense. And then I spent a good amount of time in the Chalice Well Gardens reading and listening to the bird song and experiencing the beauty of a particular magnolia tree. And it was just glorious.
So I picked this up this last week. I was going around with the kids to different places and we ended up at one point in a bookshop, and I love bookshops. So I picked this up. This is Greek Myths, the Complete and Definitive Edition by Robert Graves. So it's like all of the mythology. So these are the greatest stories ever told: the labours of Heracles, the voyage of the Argonauts, Theseus and the Minotaur, Midas and his golden touch, the Trojan War, and Odysseus' journey home, brought together in one epic and unforgettable story. Ideal for the first time reader. It can be read as a single page turning narrative, while full commentaries as well as comprehensive lists of names make it equally valuable for anyone seeking an authoritative, detailed account of the spectacular stories that make up the bedrock of Western literature. So I felt like this was a good place to start because I want to read essentially the Homeric hymns, and because I started reading the Homeric hymns online, but I wanted to have, you know, a copy, but I thought this would be a good place to start, and it has more in it as well. So it has a really good index here, and so you can see the sections related to whatever figure it is that you're looking for. And I spoke to a really great, knowledgeable member of staff at Waterstones who told me perhaps that it might be a good idea to get hold of a Greek mythology dictionary as well, like a dictionary of names. So that's something that I may do. But I think I'm just going to, after going through this, the sections related to Persephone, I mean obviously dipping in and out of the sections related to Persephone, Hades and Demeter, Hecate, I mean specifically related to Persephone's story, I'm going to go straight to the source text and actually get specific paperback copies of the Homeric hymns and then Ovid's Metamorphosis. But this has been an interesting exploration anyway.
So I also managed to pick up a secondhand copy of the Homeric hymns. So I've been having a read through of these in the last few days.
So I've also been seeking somewhat and decided to pick up a copy of the book of The Sacred Magick of Abremelin the Mage. So I've been reading through this. I've got a lot of dog-eared pages already. There's a lot in here in terms of how to prepare for the process of the Abremelin ritual. Those of you who don't know, the ritual is primarily, although it's just the first part, but the ritual is related to receiving knowledge and conversation with the Holy Guardian Angel. So there is a process in here outlined. This is the S.L. Mathers one. There is another Den translation which I haven't got. This is the one that I started with. Basically, I wanted to just go back to source. So I've been focusing on the second book. The first book's a lot more sort of autobiographical, but my intent is to study this quite deeply. It's something I'm interested in just learning about at the moment. So that's been fun, an exploration.
As I mentioned, I have been seed cycling, and I've also been sticking to things in my diet that I know my body is happy with, and these soda bread rolls that I make are so good for my digestion, and because they're so easy to make, I've shown them in a number of my vlogs now, and I pretty much make them every couple of weeks, and I slice them up when they're fully baked and cooled, and then I put them in the freezer, and I enjoy one or two of these a day, either for breakfast or for lunch. They're just so yummy, and I just love the taste of soda bread, and these are so good, so easy, so quick, and I just love freshly made bread, and it's just an easy way to do it. So I've also been having a lot of Greek yogurt for protein, and I make these really yummy protein pancakes as well, which I absolutely love, and have a little bit of fruit. And so these are just some of the meals that I've really been enjoying, and some of the ones that are a little bit more pretty to look at, I guess. So this doesn't illustrate like how I'm eating every day. Like this isn't like a what I eat in a day, but many of you might not even want to see what I eat, but these are just some of the things. Like, so I had some falafels, I had like leftover carrots and sweet potatoes, some leftover coleslaw, some like really amazing pesto I picked up from Glastonbury. I've been having the sunflower seeds here, lots of salad, coleslaw, and then in my luteal phase, I made this amazing banana bread, and I found the recipe online. I will link the creator and put it on screen. So it was on Instagram, and it's a really, in quotation marks, clean recipe. You know, it's got lots of really good things in it, and the creator didn't actually include any sugar in hers at all, but I adapted the recipe slightly, so I'll leave my recipe below. Hers called for chestnut flour, which I didn't have, but I had coconut flour, so I used that. It looks really dry, but I promise you it was like the fudgiest thing. This is like the most amazing bibimbap that my hubby makes with brown rice. It looks so yummy. please. Often have chicken and fish in a day, and I roast up these butternut squashes and make mixtures. I love porridge as well. I have organic gluten-free oats and then like flax seeds, and then when I was in my follicular phase I had pumpkin seeds. I also love making herbal teas, and here I'm making some of my white willow bark and ginger tea for warming up the body, and it's just really, really nice. Like if you're feeling achy, or like if I have a flare up at all of my fibromyalgia, it's just a lush. And I love this mug. It's like my favourite mug from Disturbia, and it's got "Wouldst thou like to live deliciously" on it. And of course I've been going on lots of walks. I've been walking the dog most days, going to the woods, as well as also going out to our local country park, which is just on our doorstep. This is where we live. So it's a rural area, but it's basically a new build kind of development, and it's really big, and it's a specific place that is now becoming a town as well. But a lot of it is this country park area, and it is really, really beautiful actually. So I was looking at the blossoms and just taking it all in on my walk with Coco, and it's been really warm and beautiful. So these are some of the views of the country park, and there are also some really, really amazing places for gathering ditch water and other things. Come on, Coco. Andiamo. Should I need them at all, and they're right on my doorstep. So it's a really, really beautiful place. I prefer going to the woods if I can, but this is a beautiful outdoor space. There is a communal garden there. It's got some flowers and herbs and things growing, and there's like this beautiful field here for the dogs to run around in if they like, and it's just such a nice place to walk and to meditate with nature. I really enjoy these nature walks, viewing the changes in the trees and in the plant herbal allies that I work with that are right on my doorstep, and becoming acquainted with the wildlife. There are a few boards around the country park that detail as well some of the more prevalent trees and plants and insects and wildlife, which is also really interesting. So there's a lot to take in, and a lot that changes as well throughout the season. So it's really, really nice to see how the space evolves over time, and just to connect in. I like to connect to the elements as well as spirits of place and spirits of the plant allies. And I like to make offerings in terms of picking up trash, which there's usually a lot of. There's this incredible tree as well in the middle of a field, and I am certain it's a witch's tree, and I'm so certain that it's been untouched for a number of reasons. The way it stands so majestically in the space, I love it. And I took this footage today actually because I saw these beautiful crows and I just had to film them. I had to capture it. We've had lots of rain in the last week, so actually a lot of the rivers and the streams had actually flooded, so we had this abundance of water.
And I also had this arrive the other day. I pre-ordered this last year. Author of Modern Occultism, which I haven't read, but I have on my list. But this is his newest release, Practical Magic, Ancient Tradition and Modern Practice. So this has just come in this week, just a couple of days ago. Looks incredible. David Lynch said Mitch is solid gold. If David Lynch said that, then there's some magic here. So I'm excited. It says, occult scholar Mitch Horowitz explores magic in history and practice for the hands-on seeker. Simplicity, wrote legendary occultist Jack Parsons, has been the key to victory in all the idea wars, and at present magic does not have it. In Practical Magic, acclaimed historian and esotericist Mitch Horowitz responds to this call, distilling magic to its core essentials. Drawing upon ancient Hermetic, Renaissance era and modern sources, Mitch dissects the building blocks of magic and provides formulas of immediacy, simplicity and potency. He also surveys the history of magic from deepest antiquity through the work of modernist intellects ranging from Newton to Schopenhauer to Crowley and Spare, finding connections to current studies in psychical research, quantum theory and perception perceptual-based reality. Readers receive to-the-point instruction in sex transmutation, sigil work, tarot backwards causation, the power of silence, tilting the scales of luck, magical environments, and spontaneous deity petition. Mitch shows how to maximize your practice and not overlook results when they arrive, a common malady. Also considered are delicate topics such as the left-hand path, curses, modern novelties in magic and hermeticism, the ethics of magic, and the bulletproof veracity of ESP research. Mitch asks finally whether magic can be practiced without rite or ritual, delivering the individual to his or her fullest gate. Here is an unprecedented journey from a believing historian who undoes historical knots and explores magic in its richest and most practical dimensions. So I thought this would be very interesting.
Spring, of course, is always a great time for a cleanse, and I do have some homemade smoke cleansing bundles that I'm still using, but I have been drying this foraged pine for a while that I foraged locally actually within the park that you've seen, and I had some roses as well that came from a bouquet, and so I wrapped them together with some natural twine. And you know, I don't have a specific way of doing this, I just tie them. I usually do double knots and twist them round on themselves. And then I am definitely in need of a proper spring cleanse in the herbal apothecary downstairs in the kitchen. So this is where I craft herbal tinctures and remedies and oils, mostly for like consumption, such as teas and syrups, but also for topical use like salves, etc. And I really need to go through. Usually I will make a spirit offering of any of the herbal allies that are still lingering, that I haven't worked with, and that are holding on to stagnant energies within the space.
And as a long-time supporter of Joey Morris, I also picked up Celtic hedge witchery from their shop, and I also picked up some incense and things like that for some of the deities I work with, because Joey makes beautiful handmade incenses and oils, and they are just gorgeous. So it's Starchild supplies, and you actually get some incense for free if you pick this book up at her shop. So Jane Matthews, director of the World Divination Association, says, "This is an invaluable tool for anyone wanting to deepen their connection not only to themselves but also to nature and the spirits that are all around. Joey Morris provides practical advice and techniques that offer a diverse and different way of connecting to the three worlds that are associated with Celtic beliefs. A revolutionary take on hedge witchery that focuses on what it means to reconnect with the sacred hedge in a modern world. It teaches the ways, ideas and methods of the hedgerow so that they become accessible even to those who cannot visit the physical locations themselves. Delving into secret liminal spaces, Morris expands on the knowledge and understanding of what it means to truly embody the witchcraft life. She connects readers to the wildcrafting elements of plants and natural remedies, realigning the soul to the vibrations of the spiritual ecosystem to reconnect with the earth and all her spirits. In a time when modernity, technology and disconnection from the land has caused so many of us to feel lost and disheartened, Morris helps to foster our kinship with the land. Weaving together Morris's personal witchcraft gnosis, Celtic hedge witchery focuses on embracing the shadows within ourselves as a reflection of sacred spaces. Morris offers a revolutionary take on what it means to be a hedge witch in the modern era and empowers us to come home to both the earth and to ourselves. Spellwork recipes, meditative guides and evocative poetry help guide us in connecting with Celtic deities of land, sea and sky, and in crossing the hedge to the other world. Learn how to connect to your own natural witchcraft, find the sacred landscape within yourself and connect with plant and animal spirit allies within the hedge and benefit from their spiritual power." So that sounds beautiful, and there are sections in here about the Morrigan as well. This is from Red Wheel Wiser. Courtney Webber has done a forward as well. Courtney Webber wrote a book about the Morrigan as well, which is a very good book in my opinion. I'm excited for this. Just having a look through, it looks like it's got a good explanation of land, sea and sky, the three Celtic realms. There's a book, this tiny little book here, A Circle of Stones by Erin Rowan Laurie. I remember this book explains the land, sea and sky really well. That's what I remember, various winds and such, but I remember this book, really loving this book. I read this years and years ago, but I really enjoyed this. There is also a book that I thought was here, it could be over there, but it's Wild Witchcraft and it's by Danu Forrest. And Danu Forrest is the author of Celtic Tree Magic, which is amazing book. And Wild Witchcraft, I sort of think this might be a bit like that, but one thing that that book does do, that does explain the complexity of the word Celtic and the diversity between Welsh, Scottish, Irish, etc. I mean, I do personally feel that I would rather refer to something that is Irish or Welsh, and although I haven't read Mara Starling's book on Welsh witchcraft and Welsh fairies and such, I would definitely read those books if you're interested in specifically Welsh magic for one that's just labelled as Celtic. But I am excited for the hedge aspect of this. I'm excited about connecting the wild world with our inner world, because that is one thing that I do. I do astral travel, fly. I do that from the comfort of my own home, but I also do visit specific places on the land that I am in that I have connected to in person. And so I think there's real value in that, crossing a hedge and being familiar with an actual hedge and then crossing that hedge astrally. And there's a lot to talk about there, but I think it's going to be a really, really beautiful book. Probably quite a beginner book, I think, but I still think that there will be gold here because it's Joey. So yeah, I'm excited. So that's kind of what I've been reading and what I'm about to read and what I'm excited for. And I just want to share a little bit more about my springtime journey thus far, my spring equinox journey up to as we travel through the wheel towards Bealtaine.
If you've been watching my channel for a number of years, you may remember or already know that I worked with Morrigan for a good number of years, and it's only in the last 3 years or so that I've been working with Lilith, and the work with the Morrigan became a lot quieter and it was more reverential. And in January this year, the Morrigan came back with full force and wanted the whole space, this whole old space. I mean, no other deity will come onto this space, but obviously, as you can see, it has been redone, reworked, as I do tend to spring clean it and rearrange it every month or so, a couple of months. However, I feel it is necessary, and depending on what is going on and what I'm working on. And this candle in the chalice was from Starchild Supplies a couple of years ago, and it's an offering for the Morrigan, and it's a really, really beautiful piece. And so I'm just creating this space, and since I have begun this process, you know, I've gotten clarity, more clarity on what it is that the Morrigan actually wants from me and what the proposition really is. And yeah, it's something that is happening very innately, very naturally, and it's something that's coming through very, I'd say forcefully, but not aggressively. It's coming through very, very strongly, very profoundly, but in a very beautiful way. And it's work that the Morrigan needs doing, essentially, and it's work that I'm having to deepen into and having to really check myself on and look into shadows with. So that work will be ongoing, no doubt, and this space is just a little carved out space for that. And of course I still have my Lilith altar, which I do go to several times a week and light candles on each day and offer fresh water, and I pull cards and spend some time with Lilith. And Lilith is not going anywhere for sure. The presence is still felt and very, very important, very profound, and will not go anywhere. This is the space where I have the archetype of love. I also have my Mary Magdalene statue, and I now have a Persephone statue as well, which I have yet to make offerings to or to start any structured practice or routine with. However, this is the first instance of making offerings. And this was a day last week. We went to the beach. This is on the southwest coastal path in Exmouth, and it's just a really, really beautiful place to walk. My husband and I came here on the spring equinox on our own, and it was beautiful, and I shared some photos on Instagram. And this day we went with the kids, and I found some really, really beautiful shells and connected in with certain pieces that wanted to be worked with. There are a lot of shells on this beach, and they can be found really easily within the rock pools as well. So a lot of what I do when connecting in with natural spaces around me in my vicinity, in my local area, is to listen in, to actually work in relationship with and communion with, and again, offerings of picking up litter can be a really, really great, profound offering. Singing poetry is a really, really beautiful offering in this space, and also just listening to spirits and the wisdom of their teachings is really, really powerful and profound. And I will always connect in and just see what messages are there. If there is any doubt at all, then I won't take anything from a space. Hello.
Hi, Mom. I think I made some sea salt in my mouth. There.
What have you found?
Just wait a minute. I found a few crabs. We found two.
Found a Gary.
Yeah, we found.
You found Gary. Okay.
Look, I
I'm
found
done.
birds.
Beautiful. Do you see all of the beautiful shells?
You got a long one. Looks like it.
Yeah.
Raisin clam.
Oh, I found a raisin clam.
Not raisin, raisin. That's the shell of it.
Oh, I got two more Garys left.
2 more Garys. The natural elements and items like stones and shells that are foraged and found aren't trinkets, they're not props, they're really, really beautiful allies to connect in with the space and portals to the space, to be worked with in a really reverent, respectful way. Hi.
Mama,
Hello, babe.
do I find some? Zoom, zoom, zoom. I'm zooming in my Woohoo! Go, Kathy, yeah!
On the same day, we visited this amazing National Trust estate a few miles away from Exmouth, and as you can see, seashells were a big aspect and decorative component of this beautiful house. It was built by 2 women who lived together, and it was designed so that every room would have light at certain times of day for their various activities. So it's actually a round house, essentially, a la ronde. And you can see the house at the end of the video. For those of you who don't know, the National Trust is a charity that preserves these beautiful houses, and for £15 a month you can have a membership and you can just visit any of these properties and estates, and there are hundreds of them up and down the country, and there are lots near us. We have been just loving going to them. We've visited, I think, about 6 or 7 in recent weeks, on Mother's Day and each weekend and during the holidays, and whenever it's been nice out. It's just really beautiful to explore the gardens and explore these incredible houses with so much heritage and history and a little bit of magic as well. And the kids love it, and they have great baked goods and a wonderful shop and secondhand bookshops as well, where I often find really beautiful art books or folklore books for England, and it's just been so nice to explore all these places.
There's been a lot of conversation, which I absolutely love, about the Wheel of the Year, and in terms of it not being relevant to a lot of people. And I think it's really beautiful how people are carving out their own celebrations, and I really think that that's the beauty of it. I think it's a beautiful model with which to not to follow kind of blindly, and I'm not even sure that it was meant for that. It's more of a map kind of, and it's some of the terrain that's there, and it is related to the land that I'm on, but moreover there's intricacies related to the land that I'm on. And so more and more I find myself getting to know specific plants in my area local to me, and it'll be like each season there'll be certain plant allies that will speak to me. So in the past, you know, nettles have spoken to me a lot, and chickweed has spoken to me, and cleavers have spoken to me, and dandelions have spoken to me, and I'm listening to the song of those spirits as they bloom and as I'm experiencing them, and really, really savouring that this spring and just taking note of everything. And I think it's really, really beautiful to do. So yeah, I am enjoying it, and I hope that you are having a beautiful spring as well. I really, really hope that you enjoyed sharing a little bit of my spring with me. So it's not just 1 month, it's kind of a witch's spring, I guess. But thank you for joining me. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Please let me know below how your spring has been, what you're getting up to, what you've been celebrating, how you've been spending this time, what are you studying, what are you looking into, what are you crafting. Please let me know. I'd love to hear. If you have anything that you'd like to see, please let me know as well. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Please share with anyone who you also think would enjoy. Subscribe if you haven't already, that's always great, and click the bell notification if you'd like to see more from me. And I have ways to support me down below. There's an old TikTok page, there's Instagram, there's Buy Me a Coffee, there's Ko-fi, there's a direct PayPal link, and there's Patreon as well. So thank you so much for joining me. I really, really hope that you are well and that you stay well, and I look forward to seeing you again in another video really soon. Many blessings. Bye.